Go on YouTube.
Give it about 10 seconds and then go for it.
All right, thank you, sir. Welcome, Commissioner Rogers, Commissioner Willie. All right, Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
All righty. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this fine day of Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. This is the Washington County Board of Commissioners work session. I just want to make sure everyone knows that we have an updated work session agenda. We'll only have one executive session today. The one slated for later this afternoon or later today is postponed. This is Chair Catherine Harrington, and with me this morning is Vice Chair Pam Treese, Commissioner Nafisa Fai, Commissioner Jerry Willie, and Commissioner Roy Rogers. So we have a full complement of commissioners. So we'll start off. Oh, the other thing with regard to the agenda, we already have 42 people signed up to testify during our public hearing. So with that, I would like us to have a 15-minute break between our work session meeting and our board meeting so that our staff has a break prior to their supporting us in our business meeting later today. So with that, we'll start off with board communications. Who would like to go first? Go ahead, Commissioner Willie.
Sure, I'll start. It's rather short, even though it was a very busy week. Of course, we all met with Senator Wyden, and so, Chair, I'll let you report on that. Had a couple of constituent phone calls regarding homeless and their perspective of what we should be doing with the homeless community. Of course, had a Salmonberry Trail Intergovernmental Agency meeting on Friday with an update from the Salmonberry Trail Foundation. It was a very good meeting, and that project is moving ahead. John Paul's doing a great job, so it's always good to hear that information. And at some point in time, probably after the new year, we'll have another update from some of the fundraising and other projects that are going on there. Did a lot more research regarding flavored tobacco, and we'll hear about that later today. Last night, I met with the North Plains City Council. I've been trying to get around to the cities in my district and just give an update of what the commission is doing, what's on our agenda, what's kind of the priorities of things. And it's always good to have good dialogue with them. I met with Banks City Council last week, at Forest Grove next week. And so it's been good conversations, and I think they've appreciated the communication and the interaction. And then, of course, each one of us are at Clean Water Services a good portion of this week. And Diane, that's just great information that you give us. It's a lot of hours in 1 week, but it's very informational. We appreciated the tour we got yesterday. And yeah, I walk away saying, I don't know who came up with this or how they do it, but it's great that we do it. So thank you very much. Thanks to your team as well. So that's all I got.
Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
Mine's pretty short. I basically say the same thing that Commissioner Willie did. Wyden visit yesterday at Clean Water Services was great. I really appreciated the tour and being able to be outside and see the underbelly, so to speak, of the organization was really, really very interesting. And I spent most of my time last week again listening and talking with constituents and interested parties on Ordinance 878. I did attend for a brief period of time the Housing Authority conference on Friday. Great panel around houselessness. And if you didn't attend, I would highly encourage you to watch the recording. It was really well done, and I appreciated the opportunity to be there. So with that, I'll turn it over to either Commissioner Rogers or Fye.
Go ahead, Commissioner Fye. Oops.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Lots of conversations about the ordinance today. So we had those. We talked about clean water service. Next week is busy. I think WEA has an event Monday morning, which will be a nice one with Kurt Schrader. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 meetings next week. I won't mention them all, but very interesting week. This week is clean water service and all of the great things that they do. But that's it.
I'll go next. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. Yeah, I agree with everyone. I think Clean Water Services presentation and training or a day, a retreat, if you could call it a learning retreat, was a great day. I learned a lot and really appreciate what clean water does. And I think it's coming together to say that, have you ever heard that song, Who Run the World? And it says, girls, I'm beginning to think engineers are running the world now. So it was a great day, and I look forward to the next 2 days. And I did also attend the Washington County Housing Advisory Conference as well. And it was a great conference. I agree with Commissioner Trees. So much information, so much happening. So many good people really addressing this issue of homelessness, mental health, and housing instability, and really creating good programs and good pathways to get these services. And it was really a good also conversation to hear from some of the panelists, to tell elected officials, the hard, direct request that we often might seem uncomfortable. And I really appreciated that, to say, here's what's missing, here's what you need to do. I also really appreciated the joint board meeting that we had with the Fair Board Housing, or not Fair Board Housing. I'm mixing things up now, but the Fair Board, Washington County Fair Board, really a great presentation in terms of how the fair went, and how we went with the extension of the days of the fair. And then I also had last week, final thing I'll say, and then I'll stop, was the Washington County Public Health Advisory Board. I'm on that board as the appointed commissioner. And, it's a really great meeting, great mind, and we had a full agenda. But one of the things that came out of there that I want to direct your attention to was a question and sort of conversation from that advisory committee, was this question of, when does the Washington County Board of Commissioners get to wear the hat of Board of Health, and how often? And, I've been here 10 months, and I don't think we wore that hat yet as a Board of Health, but we are the Board of Health for Washington County, and people were asking how often we wear that hat, how often is appropriate, how often we should be wearing that. So just something that I will engage with conversation with Tanya and Marnie about, like, what is the best practice in terms of switching those hats. We're not the only ones. There are a lot of Board of Health. And so I see you smiling.
I think those of us who have been on the commission through this whole global pandemic feel like it's not just been a hat that we've been wearing, but it's a full-on suit, because we've declared emergencies. We have supported our public health team and their recommendations that we have enacted as the Board of Health over and over and over again. I feel like I've gone from wearing one of those Tyvek suits, with only this much showing, to being able to take that suit off, but still wear sufficient protective gear. You are right that we don't declare our decisions as a board of health per se. It's usually buried in, not buried, it's usually one of those whereases in our resolutions and orders. So I feel like we're finally able to make decisions other than as a board of health. But Commissioner Trees, feel free to weigh in.
I just want to raise my hand and say, I think Commissioner Fai's point is exactly what you were saying, Chair, is we don't identify when we are acting in that capacity necessarily. And that's good. That's good feedback that we should, that should be kind of the mantle that we're wearing at that particular time. And I certainly agree. And I know that I'm sure all of us agree that we've been operating with that mantle for a long time, but it's not always clear when we do. And I think especially with the issue that we have on the table today, that's my guess is, after being a member of the Public Health Authority or Public Health Advisory Committee, my guess is that this was generated out of discussion about today's discussion. So it's a good lesson learned, and maybe we should consider how we do that. So thank you.
We've taken a lot of heat, particularly in May and June of 2020 over supporting reopening while also serving to support public health best practices. So it's just been one heck of an experience. And I'm really pleased that all of us as a board, all of my 4 district colleagues have really spent the time with our public health experts in getting questions answered and being willing to make decisions based on public health, even when they've been concerning with regard to economic recovery and, getting restaurants open and so forth. So yeah, we'll have to ponder that one for a bit. So you're right that it's very rare that we make decisions solely as the Board of Health. So I'm going to have to wear that thought for a little bit. COVID is still so present. Yeah. So thank you. Anything else? I didn't mean to take away from your time.
No, that's exactly why I brought that point to the last, and just to generate that conversation and just to plant the seed, because COVID is here and it looks like it's going to stay a lot longer than we would like, but it's going to be a part of our fabric from now on. So
yeah, we're living with it now versus just fighting it. You're right. Yeah. I really appreciate your having, fresh eyes and ears, fresh perspective on all of this as well, though you've been quite immersed in COVID, just in a different capacity. So cool, great. All righty, from me, thank you, commissioners, for mentioning the joint meeting that we had with the Fair Board last Tuesday. One of the things that I have really experienced and observed, as we mentioned in the meeting last Tuesday, the fair director, Leah Perkins Hagley, did a good job of navigating or trying to navigate the direction as the state of COVID was evolving here in our community all last spring. The beginning of April, we didn't yet have vaccinations available for the general public. And only now have vaccinations been available, well, for a few months now for our students 11 years or older, which is the target for 4-H and the FFA program, Future Farmers of America. So it's been, I think, challenging for many of the parents of 4-H kids, participants, as well as the various volunteers and supporters, to remember now here in October, the post-fair months, that springtime was a pretty tumultuous time in terms of what kind of events would be able to be supportive. So I think we can be pleased with the level of participation under the circumstances, but it certainly wasn't the reflective of normal times, which I believe everyone agrees is the goal moving forward, of trying to get fuller activities and representation. But I think we're going to have to try and help tell that story of how the circumstances were difficult leading up to the July 2021 fair. Because, as we all get, as we're all able to participate in more face-to-face events with people, it's so easy to forget that just 4 months ago, we couldn't do that to the level that we were, because that Delta variant was making itself present in our communities and known, and that threatening cloud that was over us. Thanks for mentioning the Housing Authority Forum last Friday. That was really great. It's wonderful that the voters have provided us with more funding. So too has the federal government and the state legislature, which is reflective of our ability to build more permanent affordable housing, as well as just scale up our level of supportive housing services. So we're so very fortunate to have that. A lot of hard work still ahead of us, but we definitely are on a positive journey forward in following through on the difficult task. In your email boxes late last week, I sent you some handy maps that I put together for myself of snapshots out of the state legislative redistricting efforts. I know I'm receiving lots of questions and phone calls. Just late last Friday, I think it was Friday, we received the letter from the Secretary of State with regard to the appointment process for the current Senate District 18 seat that is now vacated, as Senator Ginny Burdick has resigned and moved to a different capacity on the Northwest Power Planning Commission. We have until November 30th to fill that seat, after the county party has provided us with a slate. So our staff will be scheduling that accordingly. A couple of other things that were big on my plate is continuing to work with our staff as well as county chairs and Metro Council President Peterson to make sure that we're pulling in the same direction on the supportive housing services IGA. And our staff's doing a great job working collaboratively with the other county staff and Metro staff. And then lastly, yesterday, after our Clean Water Services training session, I had the monthly chair mayors meeting, went over the library funding with them that we went over in our September 14th work session. I want to thank Lisa Tattersall for joining me in that meeting. It's really challenging for some of the some of the cities to get their heads around the fact that the voters just approved another 5 years of levy funding, but with benefits costs and inflation that eats into the ability to maintain services, despite our having approved that 3% increase in funding. So they're figuring that out. And Lisa made it very clear that now is the time for us to begin the robust conversation about planning needed for the next levy definition work for the timeframe after fiscal year 25-26. It sounds like it's far away, but it's really not. So that's it from me. Any other last minute commissioner additions? No, we'll move on then to leadership communications. Ms. Angie.
Good morning, Chair Harrington, Board of Commissioners. First, I want to start with some good financial news because I don't feel I've necessarily been bringing good financial news when we've done our financial updates. We have budgeted an 8.5% increase in our health insurance premiums. That equates to $44 million per year. We just completed our insurance negotiations and really pleased to say we are at a 0.2% increase this coming year. That is surprisingly low, and it is lower than Eva Labonte has indicated our peers are. This is extremely helpful because the savings will be used to safeguard against future projected increases. So that's not to say we won't receive increases in the future, but good news at least for this year. Jenny Proctor is collecting information from the cities as far as who else is passing safe harbor eviction moratoriums and is compiling that information in a map. And so we will send that information to the board so you can have access to that information if needed for your communications. Relative to COVID statistics and our workforce, we have employees known to be off work in isolation after testing positive for COVID-19, 5. Employees known to be in quarantine who are unvaccinated after being in close contact, 5. Asymptomatic, fully vaccinated employees who are able to report back to work, we have a total of 9. In addition to that, on the 18th was our deadline to be fully compliant with the healthcare worker mandate. Happy to say that we are 100% in compliance from juvenile HHS, so that means no layoffs. And we are also compliant within the sheriff's office. There are 9 patrol deputies who did not comply and will be reassigned from either the school resource officer team or the mental health response team to other teams within the department. I should note that these functions do require a significant amount of training, so that reassignment does have a work impact for the sheriff's office. But at the end of the day, happy to say we are fully compliant. Really give kudos to our entire HR department and those departments, specifically HHS, Juvenile, and Sheriff's Office, for true partnership and collaboration. There was a lot of learning through this process that, depending on Biden's rule that County Council is continuing to monitor, that learning will be helpful for us as we move forward. And that completes my update.
Thank you, Mr. Carr.
Good morning, Chair Harrington. As Ms. Angie mentioned, the Occupational Safe and Healthy Administration has submitted its rule to the Office of Management and Budget for final review. They did that on October 12th. News reports suggest that OMB will publish it sometime soon, perhaps even this week. Its effectiveness, there's indications it might not be effective until the end of the year, but we don't know until we see it. So we're continuing to monitor, but we may have more information for you this week. With respect to the contract provisions for federal contractors, that went into effect on October 15th. We have not yet seen any contracts, but we are monitoring it. Also, as the commissioners know, the declared state of emergency expires on November 9th. And we have two policies in effect under that, policies T206 and T318 relating to masks and leave for vaccinated employees. We are going to be bringing forward on November 2nd a resolution and order for the commission to consider extending those policies beyond the expiration of the emergency declaration and recommending that the commission not extend the emergency declaration any further. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Taniguchi-Dennis?
Thank you, Chair Harrington, and good morning, Board of Directors of Clean Water Services. We're just delighted to have hosted all of you yesterday at our Durham Conferencing Center. And you got to see what we see above ground, but even more importantly, what's below ground and what the team is working on at the treatment facilities. They were really uplifted to be able to share their good work with you about solving the challenges we have today, as well as positioning our team for the future. So thank you very much. And I know we have a couple more days with our learning with the board, and we're very grateful for that. You heard a little bit about our winning result at the 2021 Intelligent Water Systems Challenge competition, and it was judged at the Water Environment Federation Technical Conference. We normally would go there with the board to look at the technologies that we utilize at the treatment facilities and also in our collection systems and watershed, but we were unable to go because of the pandemic situation we're in. But the purpose of this challenge is to really showcase innovative ways that utilities are utilizing intelligent water systems. So it's those sensors that the team talked about and the research that they talked about. So we partnered with Princeton University's engineering students because they're at the cutting edge of developing and utilizing artificial intelligence solutions to be able to optimize performance. And in this case, they worked with our team, and all of those clarifier studies that you saw, those cell-in columns that went into being able to optimize clarifier performance using AI. So it really brings student data scientists together with our CWS team to develop these solutions. And it's really inspiring not only our team for the solutions of today, but really helping to develop our water leaders of tomorrow. And the team at the student team is just over the moon at being able to win this competition. And it does come with, I believe, a $25,000 prize for them to continue to develop their programs. So that was really exciting news. We have one employee that's tested positive for COVID. They're doing well, but they're isolating at home. And we have another employee that was exposed to a family member, but they tested negative, so they're back at work. So the team's doing a real good job protecting each other and keeping work going, and I'm very proud of them, how they've weathered through the pandemic. And but thank you, board.
I just hope that our young people who are in elementary school, middle school, and high school now have the opportunity to know that science is really cool. And as young people are that much more, I think, sensitive to what climate change means for the scope of their lifetimes ahead of them, that all water is recycled water, and that there's some really cool science to be done so that we are better stewards for caring for that shared resource here on our planet. So I've just learned so much from our team, and even, for pardon the pun, digesting all of the information from yesterday since then. Wow. So we're going to have another fun 2 days ahead of us. Commissioner Fye, you have something?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing to Diane. One of your session leaders said, Nate, I think it was, that people think that it's a park, not a wastewater treatment facility. And I really did have that feeling. So I commend you for your meeting that goal of being a good neighbor. I really do think, even when I was leaving, I was trying to look inside and I was thinking, yeah, it does feel like this is a whole new park here. One of the points I mentioned at the learning session was this idea of calling out climate change in one of your planning bubbles or planning sessions. And I've been thinking about last night, and I thought, like all the smart people that work in clean water services, I really think you guys are, and I don't mean gender appropriate, I just mean you all general, everybody that works in clean water services. I really think your team is ripe to solve this problem and put Oregon as an innovative way of really coming up with a solution. It's just all the solutions and all the innovations and research that's being done in clean water services. I really think you should look into like considering ways to solve this climate or thinking about it and integrate it as part of your research to see if clean water can solve this problem in a way that's more organic and Oregon's way. So I just want to make that plug because I was thinking, imagine all the smart people in that institution, and imagine if few of them just sort of galvanize their mind power to come up with a solution. I guarantee you we can have at least 5% dent on the future. So just plugging that away. You were on my mind last night. So
Well, let's chat some more about that in the coming 2 days. That'll be great. All righty. Turning to our formal agenda, Clerk Moss, I just want to verify we don't have any agenda changes, correct?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay. We do have 2 different public hearings. We'll have the supplemental budget hearing first. Then we'll have the 3rd reading and 2nd public hearing on ordinance 878. As I mentioned, Clerk Moss let me know this morning that we have 42 people thus far who have signed up to testify. Then we have 2 action items on our agenda as well. So it will likely prove to be a long meeting. I know we have at least 1 amendment under proposal. So logistically, we'll go through having the ordinance read by title only. Then we'll have a staff report. Then we'll have a public hearing. Then we'll have a motion with regard to the ordinance, and then as part of the discussion of that ordinance, then that will be the time for consideration of any potential amendments. Is everyone clear on the logistic steps? Go ahead, Commissioner Treese.
So if we have multiple amendments, do we vote on the amendments individually? And I'm addressing this to Mr. Carr.
So after the motion is on the floor, any commissioner can make a motion to amend, and then that motion needs to be seconded. There's discussion and ultimately vote on that motion. You do them serially, so whoever makes the motion first will make sure if the motion passes, then you can consider other motions. You can amend an amendment, you can fail to amend. But it's done with the motion on the table to approve the ordinance on 2nd reading, 3rd reading.
Okay, thank you.
There are also times where once an amendment is on the table in discussing that amendment, oftentimes there can be discussion that indicates that someone may be comfortable with one part of an amendment, but not another part, and going from there. So the discussion can usually reveal the need for subsequent amendments or not. But you only have one on the floor at any one time. Commissioner Fye?
Chair Herrington, I have just might be changing the subject from the item to the I have a question about the consent agenda. One item that I like to pull, and I know today is a bit complicated, so I want to see if we can have a future work session that item rather than having the staff come and present it.
What item is it?
Is the authorized public auction of surplus real property.
What's the number, please?
The number is item 13. Agenda item 13, right after.
Could Ms. Angie and Mr. Carr weigh in to let us know if this is if this item is impacted by time? Is it time sensitive? That's the phrase I was looking for.
This is time sensitive because this is the negotiated sale agreement. So if Commissioner Fye would like to pull it from the consent agenda to have discussion on the item, then I would suggest that it be added to later in the meeting.
Yep, so we'll take that up under action item. So we'll have 3 items under action and 16 items on the consent agenda. That's the best we can do when we've got a time-sensitive consent agenda. Anything else, folks? All right, well, we'll move on then to a motion to convene in executive session pursuant to ORS 192.660 sub 2 sub H with regard to potential litigation. A motion from Vice Chair Treese. Do we have a second? Second from Commissioner Rogers. All those in favor, please vote by saying aye or raise your hand. Thank you, commissioners. Any opposed? The motion carries 5-0. We are hereby in executive session and we need to move to a different Zoom link.
Yes, I will see you over there in just a minute, commissioners. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.